Greeting gamers, and this video we're going to learn how to make the torso for the female reference. Okay, so again, there is no one way to model anything. There are definitely many different ways, but I'm going to model the female reference very similar to the Homer Simpson project. Okay, so I'm going to go to symmetry here, and I'm going to make sure that it's off for now. I'm going to go to the create tool, and under poly primitives, make sure that my interactive creation is on. And then you remember in the Homer project, the first thing we started with is a cylinder for the torso. So I'm just going to start using the top view here and make a cylinder, and I'm going to pull upward. Okay, you'll notice now that this image is starting to, reference is starting to break down. So how you fix that is go ahead and go to shading and turn turning shading to flat shade all, and that will fix it. Okay, so that was my mistake for not putting that in the exercise files, but that should fix your problems for shading the female one. Okay, so we created this cylinder, and obviously this cylinder is not going to work for this female, but again, we're going to use the channel box and really get precise with the values. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually just go ahead and use the move tool and kind of move it up where we want it and kind of see if we have the right height. So you want to put it basically above the top of her legs and below her neckline. So it looks like the width of 4.3 is pretty good, but let's go ahead and make it lower just in case we're kind of too big. Again, it's always better to be a little bit too small, and we can extrude and do stuff later than have it too big and we have to shrink everything. It's a little bit more work. And now obviously the radius of 1.6 is not going to do. Let's go something small, like let's say 0.7. Okay, and even you can see at 0.7, some of her chest and belly is overly too big already. So we're actually going to even go smaller. Let's go 0.5. Okay, and let's go ahead and center the cylinder to her spine and to her back. And even 0.5 is a little bit too big, but I think we can deal with this. We can always push in the top of her neck a little bit later. Okay, so now I'm going to use F to kind of reframe this thing so that we can have a better view of our references. And we're going to go ahead and now add our subdivisions. So a couple rules of thumb again is to use multiples of 6. So I think for subdivision for axes, I like 12, and I actually like 12 for height as well. And that will give me enough subdivisions to kind of create the curves of her body. And let's go ahead and get started then. So similar to Homer, we're going to start from the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and click on vertex mode. I'm going to click on the very first ring. Again, make sure that you're under modeling toolkit, that your symmetry is turned off, and that you don't have soft select on like I do right now. So you can see this yellow color, pink color, black color. It's because I have soft select on. I'm going to go ahead and click B so that it is now off. I'm going to use the R tool now and go ahead and scale. Now remember, Homer was very cylindrical, but when you scale a more humanoid, you got to keep your eye on the side view and your eyes on the front view. So I'm going to click on the yellow plane and expand it until I either hit the front, back, or the sides of the model. So right now, as I'm expanding, you can see right here that I already hit the front side of her body. So that's where I'm going to stop expanding in the entire plane. Now, obviously, it's not wide enough, so I'm going to go here to the front view and kind of expand it in an ovalish shape. So in the left to right way, okay? And you can kind of see from our top view that we're kind of creating a oval. And yeah, most humans are some type of oval, okay? Now, don't worry about the fact that, that this point is not going to reach her buttocks. We can fix that later by pushing it out later, by pulling it out. Right now, let's go ahead and actually decrease. I'm actually going to change my mind about this and go ahead and move the entire cylinder a little bit lower. So I'm actually going to go to object view because I want to model her buttocks in this video. So I'm going to actually move this entire cylinder a little bit more down. Okay, a little bit more down. Okay, so let's go back to our vertex mode and let's go ahead and fix this again. Click on the bottom row. I'm going to use the R tool I'm actually going to scale down and now. Okay, scale down, scale wider for her hips. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to go on and move on to the next row. I'm going to scale again with the middle one, but as soon as I hit either her front, her back, or her sides, I'm going to stop. I'm going to go and figure out now. I can always pull the buttocks back later. I'm going to go ahead and pull the side of her hips to something like that. And just looking at this, I'm probably going to need to pull this a little bit more outward to meet her hips. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next row. Again, I'm going to pull forward, but I'm going to keep my eye where? On the front and on the back. And if I hit it, I should stop and start pulling only the left to right direction. Okay, so I'm going to click on this one. Again, I'm going to pull, and here's where the arm's kind of in the way now. I kind of have to imagine her back curve. So I think this is where I'm going to hit the back side of her, the back side of her spine. And now I'm going to go back here, increase the width of her hips. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next layer. I'm going to expand out. Again, you're going to have to imagine that the arm's not there. So I think I'm already hitting the back side on this one. I'm going to move out her hips there. I'm going to go here. I'm going to pull outward. And again, I have to kind of imagine where her back is. So her back is probably right here. And I'm going ahead and move her hips there. And move up again. Kind of imagine where her spine was going to be. So her spine is probably going to be somewhere right. Oops. Control that. Go probably right about here. Move her rib cage kind of out there. Move on to the next circle here. I'm going to move this one out, and I'm probably going to have to start arching kind of backwards here. And then again, move her rib cage out there. And again, this is a reference. If you want your female character to have different curves, that's totally up to you. I'm just kind of modeling to my reference for accuracy purposes. So I'm going to move on to the next ring. I'm going to move it out so that I think her back will hit now. Move it out here to her sides. Move the next one. I'm going to kind of push out. Again, her spine's probably going to start arching backwards here. Okay, and I'm going to move back to her sides to get her sides the right width. And you can see that we're kind of building this cylindrical body part here, or this oval body part. I'm going to move it here until I hit either her back or her front. I'm going to hit her back first there. And before I do that, I'm just going to move the red axis again. Kind of reach her sides there. Go to the next row. I'm going to expand back until I hit her back or her front. And expand again. Okay. And the last ring, I probably want to move it a little bit higher. You can see our shoulders kind of right here. So maybe I'm going to move this ring a little bit higher. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead now and use the R tool. Maybe even use a W tool and kind of move it a little bit like that. Now use the R tool, kind of stretch it out. Use the other view to kind of stretch out here. Give her some shoulders here. And now you can kind of adjust your rings as necessary. So I'm going to go back to the previous ring and probably move it up a tad bit. Scale it down a tad bit. Scale this up a tad bit for her arm sockets later on. And I can go on to maybe center maybe one more ring. Kind of move it into the center here. Scale back there. Make sure the side scales are correct. And that's kind of our beginning of our curves, kind of the basic cylinder that we got going on. Now, obviously, we're going to need to, use some soft pulling to pull out some parts of her body, and that's what we're going to do next. Okay, let's go and take a quick preview though. Let's go and use the hotkey number 3, and you can kind of see what it looks like right now. Okay, as a curved image. Okay, so these are kind of her curves here. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and get started with the soft pulling. So I'm gonna go back to poly view, hit number 1 to go back to poly view. And the first thing I'm gonna work is I'm gonna work my way start at the bottom and work my way up. So let's start working on her buttocks first. So buttocks are not in the center, it's mainly on each cheek. So I'm gonna kind of use, when you work on the buttocks, you kind of use a perspective view and kind of go to the back over here. Okay, and let's start with the center of her buttocks. So you can sort of see right now that I already don't have enough vertices going down to kind of make her buttocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab these rings and I'm going to actually use the rotate tool, and I'm going to rotate it a little forward. Okay, not too much, just enough. And I'm going to kind of move it a little bit to the left. And I'm going to use the R tool and kind of scale it out. Again, this is just my way of modeling. You might have to model like me. This is just the way I decided to do it. So I'm going to create more edge loops. You can see here that I kind of went too much here, so I'm going to scale down a little bit side to side. I'm going to go ahead and click on the next edge ring. I'm going to again tilt it just a little bit. Okay. And kind of center it a little bit more over here. And then now I can go ahead and use the R tool and kind of expand it out a little bit, but not too much. So I can kind of go over here and then maybe scale it down a little bit to meet her curves. And this ring right here, maybe just rotate that just a little bit, even less than before. So just right there. And I'm going to click on this last edge ring. Looks like I kind of scaled it a little bit too wide here. Kind of lower it down, right? And got her hips. And now I have a little bit more vertices to work with her buttocks. I think I actually even need to have a more drastic. So let's go ahead and actually really make it more drastic on these. So I'm going to actually go here, and I'm going to even rotate it even more. Use the move tool and kind of go down. So I basically want to cover the bottom of her buttocks and really rotate these points. And I'm going to use the rotate tool again, kind of move it down, and then use W to kind of move it down here, just so that I had enough vertices to create a buttocks. I'm going to use the another set of rings here. And make sure you're very careful about what you're selecting when you're doing these edge loops. So I'm going to go, again, I'm going to use E, rotate it a little bit more, and R, kind of expand it out a little bit here, but move it back in here. Okay. Okay. All right. So now it looks like I have enough vertices to create a buttocks for her. So I'm going to go somewhere in the center here. And here's the time when you stop working on your edge loops and you start working on, things that are symmetrical. You should turn on Object X to make sure that when you do a soft select or a move, you're going to move both sides. So I'm going to click on the center of her buttocks. I'm going to click on B, and I'm going to kind of zoom in and zoom out. And there's no right or right rule about this. Let's go ahead and just try something. So I'm going to try going here, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it out to create a buttocks. And you can kind of see from the top view that it's not very much definition. So I'm going to click on the center of the buttocks and actually push it inward. So I'm going to kind of push it inward like so. And now you kind of see that she has more of a buttocks. And I can click on this point, and similar idea. Gotta kind of push inward. And I'm gonna click here. That looks good. That looks good. And you can use your perspective view and kind of see if you're creating a buttocks type view. Now, this is actually a good opportunity to just go ahead and use smooth view the rest of the way. by hitting number three. Up, you can see that my my shading is also off. Make sure you guys turn shading to flat shade all, and hardware texturing, and that your references won't disappear. So if your references disappear, make sure that you have hardware texturing on and that you have flat shade on as well. Okay, so now we got our references back. We can go ahead and check, and it looks like I'm doing a good job of creating a buttocks. I probably want to push this one in just a tad bit here, and maybe pull this out a little bit here. So now she has some buttocks. Now when we go back to working our way up, now we're looking at the stomach line right here. Let's go ahead and fix some of these. So I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to do a soft move down a little bit here. Okay, and let's go ahead and look at the front and fix some of these edge rings. So of course, when you have this large of a bump, you want to select the center lines of where you're going to pull, and I'm going to pull her entire abdomen, and I'm probably going to need to increase the scale of the soft select to kind of select her entire abdomen. So I'm going to pull out. Okay, kind of pull out there. Okay, and I'm going to kind of push this point that we kind of created a little bit inward. Maybe I'll push this one inward first, and maybe turn off the soft select a little bit too powerful. Just to really hone in on there, kind of push it in, fix some of her curves. Okay. This, kind of pull it out there. This one kind of pull out and maybe a little up. Pull this ring up a little bit as well. All right. All right. So so let's see what else we can do here. I'm going to go ahead and click on this. Push in a little bit there. Push them a little bit down. And again, this is just all kind of up to your perception of what's going on and what needs to be fixed. Again, if you click on the smoother view, you can kind of see what your curves are looking like right now. So that's looking not too bad. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it on smooth view so I can kind of really get the curves that I want to match my reference. And you can see right now that my B is way too small, so I'm gonna undo that. I'm gonna make my B a little bit larger. And again, it's not so important that you're doing exactly what I'm doing, but that you're using the tools that I'm using to create the curves that you feel are best for your character. Okay, so this is kind of like her solar plex here. So this is where I'm going to keep using the middle points. But now when I get to her chest area, I'm going to go ahead and start using the center of her chest, and I'm going to pull it out using the Object X symmetry. So it seems like it's going to be kind of the midpoint of her chest is going to be somewhere between this point and this point. So I'm going to pull the lower point first. Kind of pull out, and you can kind of see that I'm pulling too many points. So that tells me that my B is probably too big. So I'm going to kind of decrease the the soft select so that I'm pulling more there. Okay. And I don't want to pull all the way quite yet because I want to make sure that I'm pulling this one as well. And it looks like I just got about her curves. Okay. And you can look at the top view and kind of see if this is the curve that you're looking for her chest. And again, this is just a reference. If you decide that you want some other, curves, you're welcome to do that as you see fit. It looks like I'm almost pretty much done. I think the back, this is going to be the way her back will curve. It looks like I can pull the back out just a little bit. When you select on a point, use your other views to make sure that you're clicking on the center. But actually, this is not where I actually want to be a center. I take that back. This is where I want to create kind of a shorter blade. So I'm going to click on this point right here, these 2 points, and I'm just going to try it and see if I like the shorter blades. this may looks a little bit too hard. So maybe a little bit of a shorter blade like that. Okay, and I'm gonna click up on the next point on the back, right there. And I'm gonna pull that a little back. And I'm gonna click on the last point here. And this is not where I wanna be creating symmetry. I'm just wanna click on maybe that back point right there and pull back a little bit. So now we have kind of a shorter blades, we have a back, a spine, buttocks, some abs. If you want to go and click on each individual abs and make a more muscular abs, you can kind of pull out the the middle of each side to kind of create that one. And let's go ahead and create the shoulder and the neck, and we will be done. Okay, so I think I got this right where I kind of want it in terms of her shoulders. So I'm going to go ahead and click the top ring. I'm going to make sure I'm going to turn off soft select. And this is when you're working with rings again, you want to turn the symmetry object X off. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the faces. So I'm going to go to face select, and I'm going to click on the individual faces. So you can use the shift tool like I'm doing now. I'm just left clicking and shifting to select all the faces to extrude. Another way to do this, if you're so inclined, is if you're not very accurate with clicking, you can turn camera-based selection on, and you can select these faces on top, and it will not select any of the faces on the bottom. Okay, but remember, if you turn camera-based selection on, you have to later turn it off when you're working with something else. So I'm going to use camera-based selection to select these faces. I'm going to go ahead and extrude it. So extrude is Control E. Or if you want, you can use Shift and hold using the Move tool. Hold Shift and extrude upward. So I'm creating now the shoulders. Okay. And now I'm actually going to use vertex mode and kind of taper the shoulders inward a little bit more. So I'm going to use R, the scale tool, and scale it down to kind of make these shoulders. Okay. Now, kind of looking at it now, I kind of really want to fix these lines, kind of make her, give her more shoulders here. Okay. And these maybe a little bit more. Actually, she does not. That's pretty good. So click on these, make it a little bit more so that it's curves to her shoulders. And now that we have shoulders, the last part is the neck. So I'm actually going to click on the top ring. And this is not really her neck is, because her neck is actually probably a little bit higher. Okay, so I'm going to use the Move tool, move it probably a little bit higher, and I'm going to scale it down to her neck, like so. Okay, all right. And you can actually see here that I made a mistake already. I didn't select the entire ring because I didn't even take my own advice. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Z probably one more time. I need to turn camera selection back off. Okay, so I'm actually going to undo a few of my alterations here. And I think that's when I got to Control Z. So I'm going to go back to camera, base selection off, and now I'm going to go back and fix these rings. So I'm going to start with her neck again. I'm going to hit W, make sure that you're selecting the entire ring. I'm going to go up. I'm going to use the R tool, scale it down to her neck like so. I'm going to take this ring. I'm going to move it up to make it more of her shoulders. I'm going to scale it down a little bit. Okay. I'm going to click this set right here. I'm going to scale it wide. Maybe move a little bit inward here. Okay, I think I messed up on the other ring. This ring is probably way too big. So decrease this. Okay, click on this ring, and I'm going to kind of frame it right here, kind of see where I wanted this. So this is actually kind of way too high. This is definitely not where her shoulder is. All right, so I'm going to adjust it back down. So this is where her shoulder is, where her shoulder ends. I'm going to use the W tool to kind of center it right there. I'm going to click on this set of rings. This set of rings is not centered and probably not scaled correctly. So I'm going to scale it a little more wide out there and a little more wide out there. And this set of rings can probably be a little bit more up. Okay, move it a little bit more left. Scale it a little bit more to the side. Again, I mean, you don't have to be as precise as me, but get the rough idea. Okay, so let's go ahead, and now that we created her shoulders by making this kind of arch where it's going to kind of go really inward, now we're going to go ahead and click on these faces again, and we're going to extrude. So I'm going to go and go to face select. And again, I'm not a big fan of camera-based selection unless you're really in a jam. I'm just going to go ahead and click on each individual one. Because the mistake of using camera-based selection on or off is pretty detrimental. Okay, so I have all the faces selected again. I'm going to use the Control E to extrude. And I'm going to extrude a neck right here. And now I'm going to use the rotate tool, kind of rotate it so that it's ready for the neck. And I'm going to use back to poly view real quick and kind of see what's going on with my poly. And I'm going to go ahead and use, see that's too big. I'm going to use the R tool, scale it down a little bit here. And you can see kind of this view that I really screwed up on this set of vertices. So I'm going to go to vertices again. Click on these views, kind of scale it down. Okay. And make it wider for her neck right there. And I don't know what's going on right here. Grab these, kind of center it, move it down a little bit, scale it up just a tad bit, and move this scale down. Okay, and maybe now if I use smooth view, I'll get more of what I'm looking for. Okay. Okay, so if I go back to poly view, you can see that a lot of things look out of proportion and too sharp. But if you go into smooth view, you kind of get exactly the curves you were looking at and get a more precise understanding of what your thing will look like when it's in smooth view. Okay, and that does it. It looks like I have the basic geometry down for her torso, and in our next video we'll talk about how to make the arm sockets and make the arms for the female reference.